"Commander, don't move. The smoke is watching you." Ethan Cole's voice cut through the wind a second before the black mist curled around Ava Mercer's boots. The Survey Valley on Kepri, 9 stretched beneath a copper sky, all jagged basalt and abandoned drilling towers, but the thing moving across the ground was not shaped by weather. It slid uphill against a 30-mile-an-hour crosswind. It avoided the pools of white work light, and when it touched the steel legs of a mining rig, the metal gave a faint electrical hum, like a glass rim under a wet finger. Ava turned toward him, cobalt blue skin bright beneath her helmet lamps. Her silver hair floated behind the clear face, shielded in the weak gravity. "Smoke does not watch people, Mr. Cole." Her tone carried the calm patience of an officer correcting a child. Ethan kept his eyes on the ground. Fine gray ash clicked against his visor. His suit display showed 12 degrees Fahrenheit, steady pressure, no detectable toxins, and a static charge rising fast enough to make the hair on his arms lift beneath the thermal layer. None of the numbers explained why the mist had stopped exactly 3 inches from his boots. "Your instruments say it's safe?" he asked. "They do." "Then ask them why it's moving against the wind." Behind them, 3 Aurelian technicians paused beside the sensor sled. Ava glanced back. They were watching her. Ethan saw the change in her posture immediately. Shoulders straighter, chin higher, command replacing caution. She had spent the entire descent explaining that humans came from a death world and therefore mistook survival reflexes for wisdom. Earthquakes, hurricanes, wildfire, venom, disease. To her people, Earth sounded less like a birthplace and more like a badly managed weapons test. Ethan had not argued. He had learned long ago that danger did not care whether anyone believed in it. A survey drone drifted over the ravine, its rotors whispering in the thin air. The mist rose to meet it. For half a second, the drone's camera feed flashed across Ethan's wrist display. He saw the team from above. Ava, the technicians, himself, and one additional figure standing 20 feet behind them, tall and motionless, shaped like a person but made entirely of shadow. Then the image vanished. The drone dropped from the sky and landed softly in the ash. No impact alarm. No sparks. Just silence. Ethan stepped toward Ava. "We're leaving." She looked at the fallen machine, then at him. A small smile touched the corner of her mouth. "Your world truly trained you to fear shadows." The technicians heard her laugh. It was quiet, controlled, almost elegant. Then she stepped across the yellow hazard marker. The mist moved instantly. It did not billow. It folded. Black vapor wrapped around her waist, climbed her armor, and swallowed the blue light of her helmet. Ava's amber eyes widened. Her hand reached toward Ethan through the dark. He caught only empty air. One heartbeat later, she was gone. Her sidearm landed on the basalt with a soft metallic clack. The mist flattened against the ground as if nothing had happened. Ethan stood perfectly still. His display still showed no life form, no chemical threat, no movement ahead. Then his radio crackled. 3 slow knocks sounded through the speaker. Metal against metal. A breath followed, thin and distant. "Ethan," Ava whispered. "It knows my name." The transmission died. The valley became silent again. Then the smoke spoke from behind him in the voice of a man who had been dead for 9 years. "You left me in the fire, Cole." 17 minutes earlier, the survey shuttle had settled onto Kepri, 9 with a low mechanical groan, its landing struts sinking 2 inches into powdery ash. Ethan Cole stood at the open ramp and tasted metal through the filter of his breathing mask. The valley below looked burned, though no flame had touched it. Black basalt ridges cut across the ground like frozen waves, and abandoned drilling towers leaned beneath a copper-colored sky. Commander Ava Mercer stepped past him without hesitation. Her cobalt blue skin reflected the white cabin lights, and her amber eyes moved from one instrument display to the next. "Atmosphere stable," she said. "No biological activity. No chemical hazard." Ethan crouched near the ramp and pressed 2 gloved fingers into the ash. It clung to the fabric for a moment, then slid away from his hand. "Static charge is climbing," he said. Ava glanced at her wrist display. "Within operational tolerance. For your equipment, maybe." One of the Aurelian technicians released the sensor sled. Its silver wheels unfolded with soft clicks, and the machine rolled toward the nearest drilling platform. Ethan watched the ash gather along the edges of its metal frame. It did not collect randomly. The particles formed thin, parallel lines, each one pointing toward the ravine. That is not wind patterning, he said. Ava continued walking. You have been on this moon for 6 minutes. 6 minutes is enough to notice when dust behaves like iron filings. She stopped beside a fractured support column and turned toward him. Earth trained your species to expect danger everywhere. Predators, storms, disease, unstable ground. I understand why your instincts are loud. Her voice was not cruel. That made it worse. She sounded patient, almost sympathetic. Ethan looked past her toward the ravine. A faint ribbon of black vapor was sliding between the rocks. Instinct is experience that learned how to speak before language, he said. Ava gave him a small, unreadable smile. That sounds poetic for an environmental safety engineer. I used to fight wildfires. The words left a taste he did not like. Ava's expression shifted slightly. On Earth, Colorado, Idaho, Northern California. He looked toward the dark ribbon again. Places where the weather could turn a safe route into a trap before a computer finished updating. The lead technician called from the sensor sled. Commander, subsurface scans show a structure beneath the basalt. Approximately 400 feet long. Artificial construction. Ava's attention sharpened. Age estimate. Unknown. The walls are interfering with the scan. Ethan noticed 3 small shapes near the technician's boots. Insects, or something close to insects. They lay motionless in the ash. Their shells were unmarked. No heat damage. No sign of decay. He knelt beside them, then checked the temperature. 12 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold enough to preserve them, but not enough to explain the way their legs all pointed toward the same patch of darkness. Commander, he said, rising. We should pull back to the shuttle. Ava looked toward the distant storm front. Blue lightning flickered behind the mountains. The magnetic disturbance reaches us in 40 minutes. We finish the first scan now or lose the sight for days. A survey drone lifted from the sled and drifted toward the ravine. Its camera feed opened across Ethan's wrist display. For a few seconds, the image was clean. The team stood below in a loose formation. Ava near the hazard marker. 3 technicians beside the sled. Ethan at the rear. Then he counted again. There were 6 figures in the image. One stood directly behind him. Tall, dark, motionless. Ethan turned. Nothing waited there except wind and ash. On the display, the extra figure raised one hand and pointed toward Ava. The feed broke into white static. The drone fell from the air and landed without a sound. Ethan walked to it and lifted the access panel. The outer shell was cold and undamaged. Inside, every circuit, wire, and processor had fused into smooth black glass. Behind him, Ava gave the order to continue. Ethan slowly closed the panel. Across the valley, the dark vapor began moving uphill against the wind. Ethan did not look back when the dead man spoke. He knew that voice. He knew the tired scrape beneath it, the way the final word dropped as if the speaker had run out of breath. Daniel Reyes had sounded exactly like that over a wildfire radio 9 years earlier, somewhere beyond a wall of orange light in the Colorado mountains. Ethan had spent years teaching himself that memory was not a command. You are not him, he said. The smoke behind him answered with Daniel's soft laugh. You said that before. Ethan turned off his helmet radio. The voice continued through the air. That was useful. It meant the thing did not need his communication system. He reached the survey sled and pulled open the emergency compartment. The Aurelian technicians stood several yards away, their pale faces fixed on the place where Ava had vanished. One of them raised a scanner with shaking hands. There is no signal, she said. No heat. No movement. The commander is gone. She is not gone. Ethan removed a coil of yellow rescue line for chemical lights, a mechanical compass, and a compact breathing unit. He set each item on the basalt with careful precision. Your sensors cannot see whatever took her. The senior technician stepped forward. Protocol requires immediate withdrawal. The magnetic storm will reach this valley in 28 minutes. Ethan checked the breathing unit. 12 minutes of clean air at controlled exertion. Less if he had to carry someone. Then send the shuttle back to the ridge and keep the engines warm. You cannot enter that formation. I can. You have no navigation system. Ethan held up the compass. Its needle trembled, then settled north. I have one that does not need software. The technician stared at the small metal instrument as if Ethan had produced a stone tool. That device is primitive. So is breathing. It still works. He clipped one end of the rescue line to the sled and locked the reel. The other end went around his waist beneath the suit harness. He bent the chemical lights until they glowed green, then placed one at the hazard marker, one on his shoulder, and two in a pouch. He shut down his wrist display, helmet lights, locator beacon, and suit telemetry. The sudden silence inside the armor felt heavier than darkness. Only the mechanical oxygen gauge remained, its thin red needle resting at 12. Pull twice if you feel tension, Ethan told the technician. 3 times means reel me in. And if the line goes slack? Ethan looked toward the black vapor. Do not follow. He crossed the yellow marker. Cold touched the front of his suit. The smoke closed around him without wind, scent, or pressure. The valley disappeared after 8 feet. Even the green light on his shoulder seemed farther away than it was. Ethan kept one hand on the rescue line and the other extended before him. His boots found smooth stone beneath the ash, then a shallow descent. 3 slow knocks sounded somewhere ahead. Metal against metal. He followed them. Daniel's voice moved beside him. Wrong direction, Cole. Ethan ignored it. Another voice came from the left, his mother calling him home for dinner. Then Ava whispered from the right, calm and close. You are too late. He stopped. The line around his waist had shifted. It no longer pulled from behind. It hung loose against his leg. Ethan reached back and found the cut and swinging in the dark. No snap. No vibration. No warning. The smoke had severed a line rated to hold 900 pounds without making a sound. His oxygen needle slipped below 11 minutes. Ahead, 3 knocks came again. This time, beneath them, he heard Ava draw one frightened breath. Ethan followed the frightened breath because fear was harder to imitate than words. The smoke could borrow voices, memories, even regret, but the sound ahead carried a break in its rhythm that no machine had perfected. He moved slowly, one hand against the wall, the other holding the chemical light near his chest. The ground sloped downward beneath his boots. Basalt gave way to metal. Smooth panels emerged from the dark, their surfaces cold enough to fog the edge of his visor. He had entered something buried beneath the valley. The corridor narrowed until his shoulders nearly brushed both walls. Thin silver threads hung from the ceiling like roots. They trembled when he passed, though the air was still. His oxygen needle dropped toward 9 minutes. 3 knocks sounded again. Closer now. Ethan turned a corner and saw a faint amber glow through the smoke. Ava hung upright in the center of a circular chamber, held by dozens of metallic filaments wrapped around her armor. Her helmet was open, but her eyes were fixed on something Ethan could not see. The smoke moved across her face in slow waves. Ava. She did not respond. Her lips formed silent words. Ethan stepped closer. The chamber brightened around him. Walls dissolved into orange sky. Heat rolled across his skin. For one terrible second, he was back in Colorado, standing beside a burned ridge while Daniel's radio called from somewhere beyond the trees. You left us, Daniel said. Ethan closed his eyes. No, you chose the road. The road was gone. You heard me. I did. The memory pressed against him, sharp and complete. He could smell pine resin. He could feel ash beneath his tongue. Then he noticed the oxygen gauge. The needle had not moved. Real heat would have raised his breathing rate. Real smoke would have changed the filter pressure. This place had copied the picture, not the physics. Ethan opened his eyes. The forest vanished. Ava still hung before him, trapped inside her own illusion. He reached for the filaments. They tightened around her armor and gave off a soft electrical hum. Cutting them would take too long. Calling her name had already failed. He studied her face. Her breathing was shallow. Her pupils followed something moving far away. Ethan remembered what she had said about Aurelian command. No fear. No hesitation. No weakness where others could see. Whatever the chamber showed her, it had built the prison from that belief. He switched off the chemical light. Darkness closed around them. Then he released the seal on his helmet. Cold air touched his face. His suit alarm remained silent because he had disabled it outside. He removed one glove, reached through the threads, and pressed his bare palm against Ava's cheek. Her skin was cool. Her eyes did not move. Ethan leaned closer until his forehead rested against hers. Listen to me, he said. Not the voices. Not the room. Me. He breathed once, slowly. The warmth of his breath passed between them. His pulse beat against her temple. Human heat. Human rhythm. Physical things the chamber could not invent fast enough. Ava's eyes shifted. Ethan, yes. You came back. You sound surprised. A filament snapped loose from her shoulder. Then another. The illusion flickered. For a second, Ethan saw what Ava had been seeing. A line of Aurelian officers standing in smoke. Empty helmets at their feet. Every face turned away from her. Ava drew one deep breath and looked directly at him. The chamber lost its hold. The silver threads relaxed. Ethan caught her as her boots touched the floor. She was unsteady, but conscious. His oxygen needle passed 7 minutes. Behind them, the walls began to hum. Not randomly. In sequence. One panel after another waking from a long sleep. Ava looked past Ethan, and the color drained from her expression. This place knows my command code, she whispered. Somewhere below the floor, ancient machinery answered her by name. The machinery beneath them woke in layers. First came a low vibration through the floor. Then a line of pale blue symbols appeared along the wall, one after another, until the chamber glowed like ice under moonlight. Ava steadied herself against Ethan's shoulder. Her left leg trembled when she tried to stand alone. The restraint field disrupted my motor control, she said. Temporary. I do not know. Ethan glanced at the mechanical gauge on his breathing unit. 6 minutes and 40 seconds. The needle moved with every breath. Then we do not wait here to find out. A narrow maintenance door had opened behind the far wall. Warm air spilled through it, carrying the dry scent of heated stone. Ethan guided Ava into the passage while the chamber continued speaking her name in a voice too calm to trust. The corridor ended at a service alcove no larger than a storage closet. Copper pipes ran across the ceiling, and a thermal vent pushed air into the space at 98 degrees Fahrenheit. The black vapor stopped at the doorway. It gathered there in a thin, restless sheet, but did not cross the heat. Ethan closed the manual latch and lowered Ava onto the floor beside the vent. His oxygen gauge showed 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Ava saw it. Your respirator is failing. A puncture in the intake seal. Remove it. The air outside is not safe. This room is isolated. Ethan checked the pressure strip beside the door. The faded indicator held steady. He released the mask. Cold metal taste filled his mouth, followed by air that felt painfully dry but breathable. The damage had already lowered his blood oxygen. He could hear it in the slight delay between thought and movement. He began counting silently. 4 seconds in. 6 seconds out. Slow enough to stay useful. Ava watched him for 3 breaths before lifting her own mask. Use mine. Your filter is tuned for Aurelian chemistry. Our atmospheric range overlaps. Not perfectly. Neither does dying. Her voice was firmer now. Ethan met her eyes, then accepted the emergency adapter from her suit. The connection hissed when it locked between their masks. Warm air reached him in measured pulses, carrying a faint mineral scent from her filtration system. It was not comfortable, but the tightness in his chest eased. They sat close enough to share the short length of tubing, the vent humming above them, the black vapor waiting beyond the door. Ava looked at the red needle on his gauge. How many breaths? 47 before the reserve becomes unreliable. You counted them. I count what I can control. For several seconds, only the respirator spoke between them. In, out. A small mechanical rhythm in a buried room. Ava lowered her gaze. You were correct outside. Ethan adjusted the seal around the adapter. That is not important now. It is to me. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her glove. I saw the vapor change direction. I understood that your warning had merit. Ethan looked at her. Then why did you laugh? The answer took longer than he expected. My officers were watching. An Aurelian commander does not hesitate because a human senses danger that instruments cannot confirm. So you stepped forward to look fearless. Yes. The word came out quietly. Ethan leaned back against the warm wall. Fear is not surrender. Ava studied him. What is it then? He listened to the vapor slide across the other side of the door. Information. The hum beneath the floor deepened. Symbols spread across the wall, arranging themselves into lines of military authorization. Ava's command code appeared at the center. Then another message formed beneath it. Access accepted. Release path initialized. Ava stared at the words as the maintenance door began to unlock by itself. It did not take me to kill me, she whispered. Ethan reached for his mask. Beyond the door, the smoke had started moving toward the surface. The maintenance door opened 3 inches before Ethan forced the manual lock back into place. The metal shuddered under his hand. On the other side, the black vapor pressed forward in silence, thin as breath on glass. Ava studied the authorization symbols crawling across the wall. "It is using my command implant as a key," she said. Ethan looked toward the base of her neck, where a faint line of blue light pulsed beneath the collar of her suit. "Can you shut it down?" "Not without removing the implant." "And that would do what?" "Possibly stop my heart." Ethan pulled the adapter free from their shared respirator and resealed his own mask. "Then we find another option." Ava stared at him. "You say that as if options always exist." "They usually do. People just stop looking when the first one hurts." The room trembled again. A panel in the wall slid aside, revealing a narrow data port surrounded by old Aurelian military markings. Ava moved closer, favoring her weakened leg. Her expression changed as she read the faded symbols. "This installation predates our current government." "How old?" "At least 200 years." She touched the port. The wall answered with a cascade of names. Hundreds of them, then thousands. Some appeared only for a second before fading into static. Ethan watched the list fill the chamber with pale light. "What are they?" Ava did not answer at first. One name remained longer than the others. Captain Soren Vale. Her breathing stopped for half a beat. "My first expedition," she whispered. "We lost contact in the Vera Basin 11 years ago. The official report said the team was destroyed by a magnetic storm." More names appeared beneath the captains. Ava stepped closer until her palm rested against the wall. "These are all of them." Voices began to emerge from the machinery. Not clear sentences. Fragments. Coordinates. Last messages. A child calling for a parent. A technician reciting a repair sequence. An officer asking for extraction. The sounds overlapped until the room seemed full of people speaking from very far away. Ethan listened carefully. "They are recordings." Ava shook her head. "More than recordings. Neural patterns. Memory fragments copied from command implants." Her face reflected in the wall, blue against blue. This system did not simply capture them. It kept pieces of them. The black vapor slipped through the edge of the door, recoiling each time the thermal vent pushed warm air across the floor. Ethan followed the movement with his eyes. "Can the data be recovered?" Ava looked toward a recessed console. "Yes, but activating the archive will complete the release sequence." "How long to copy it?" "For minutes." "How long until the vapor reaches the surface?" She checked the shifting symbols. "Less than 6. Ethan opened the emergency pouch and removed the small mechanical timer from his belt. He set it for 4 minutes and placed it beside the console. Ava turned toward him. "We should leave now. Those people have been missing for 11 years. They are gone. Their names are still here." The words landed softly, but Ava lowered her gaze. Ethan connected the portable storage unit from the survey kit to the ancient port. The device remained dark. He had disabled its electronics before entering. "You will need to power it." Ava placed her hand over the command interface. Amber light spread beneath her fingers. The archive woke. The voices sharpened around them. "Ethan," she said, "if this releases the vapor, the colony may be exposed. Then we make sure the colony knows what is coming." The timer began to tick. For minutes, the room filled with names, memories, and the faint sound of people who had waited too long to be acknowledged. Ava watched the transfer bar climb. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan kept his eyes on the door. "Because saving someone is not always the same as keeping them alive." The wall flashed. "Archive, transfer active. Release path at 70%. Beyond the door, the vapor withdrew from the heat and began flowing upward through hidden shafts. "Not hunting now. Escaping." Ava looked at the rising percentage, then at Ethan. "It used me to open the path." "Yes." The timer passed 3 minutes. Far above them, a distant alarm began to sound from the colony. The archive reached 100% as the alarm above them changed from a steady tone to 3 sharp pulses. Ethan pulled the storage unit free and secured it inside his suit. The wall went dark. For 1 second, the buried station became completely silent. Then every hidden passage opened at once. Cold air rushed through the chamber, carrying streams of black vapor upward. Ava gripped the edge of the console. "The colony network is activating emergency containment." Ethan shook his head. "That will make it worse. The vapor follows power." He guided her toward the service corridor. Her injured legs still moved stiffly, but she no longer leaned on him unless the floor shifted beneath them. The climb to the surface felt longer than the descent. Heat faded. The metal walls became basalt again. Voices followed them through the dark, borrowing tones from the archive. Some called Ava by rank. Others used Ethan's name. Neither answered. When they emerged into the valley, the magnetic storm had reached the mountains. Blue light flashed across the copper sky, and the colony 2 miles away had gone black except for the red emergency lamps around its outer wall. A thick band of vapor moved over the ground toward it. The shuttle waited on the ridge, engines running. The 3 technicians rushed forward, but Ava raised one hand. "Power down every non-essential system," she ordered. The senior technician stared at her. "Commander, the colony is under full containment. Containment uses electric seals, active sensors, and automated doors. The vapor will follow all of them." She looked at Ethan. "What do we use instead?" He handed her the remaining rescue line. "People. Rope. Light that does not transmit." Ava turned back to her team. "Chemical markers only. Mechanical locks. No networked equipment." There was no hesitation in her voice, but this time it was not pride. It was trust. They boarded the shuttle with the cabin lights off. The pilot kept only the flight controls active, and Ethan watched the vapor below curve toward the colony as though drawn by an invisible river. By the time they landed, families had gathered behind sealed doors while the public address system repeated evacuation orders in calm synthetic tones. The vapor had already entered the outer maintenance ducts. Ethan pulled the main breaker by hand. The colony fell into darkness. The announcement stopped. For a moment, hundreds of people stood without instructions. Then voices began calling from the hallways. Familiar voices. Parents. Friends. Children. The vapor used what it had learned beneath the valley. One frightened worker reached for an electronic door panel. Ava caught his wrist before he touched it. "Do not trust a voice you cannot see," she said. She clipped the yellow rescue line to a steel support and passed it to him. "Hold this. Follow the person in front of you. Do not let go." Ethan lit a green chemical marker and placed it at the first turn. More lines followed, running through dark corridors toward the western shelter, where old manual doors could be sealed without power. The evacuation became slow, quiet, and human. Hands on rope, boots on metal, breath in the dark. Ava moved beside Ethan, repeating his instructions without changing a word. When a false voice called her from an empty stairwell, she did not look toward it. The last group reached the shelter as the vapor filled the main concourse. Ethan closed the manual wheel and felt the lock engage. Outside, the black cloud gathered against the glass. Inside, no one spoke. Ava looked through the window at the smoke surrounding the dead colony lights. "How do we stop it?" Ethan watched the cloud spread toward the industrial district, where the mining furnaces stood cold beneath the storm. One structure still had a mechanical ignition system older than the network. "We do what wildfire crews do," he said. "We take away the path it wants and give it only one place to go." Ava followed his gaze toward the largest furnace. The vapor was already turning in that direction, drawn by the emergency generators beneath it. Ethan unfastened the storage unit containing the lost names and handed it to her. "Get this to the shelter archive." Ava did not take it. "You are planning something alone. I am planning something fast." Then plan for 2. Beyond the glass, the black cloud rose high enough to hide the furnace towers. Ethan heard the old machinery begin to wake. Ethan and Ava crossed the industrial yard beneath a sky split by silent blue lightning. The furnace stood ahead like a black cathedral, its steel walls trembling as old pumps forced fuel through pipes that had not been used in years. The black vapor moved around the buildings in long, searching ribbons, following every active circuit it could find. Ethan reached the furnace control platform and opened the manual panel. Brass wheels, pressure gauges, mechanical relays, nothing the vapor could command. "The ignition chamber can reach 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit," he said. "Hot enough to break the particles apart." Ava studied the furnace mouth, then the cloud gathering behind them. "How do we bring it inside?" Ethan looked at the blue pulse beneath the collar of her suit. "It is still following your implant. Then I lead it." "No. You said fear was information. Mine is telling me your next plan is worse." Ethan removed the archive unit from his suit and connected it to a portable signal repeater. The device flickered as it copied the authorization pattern stored during the transfer. This will imitate your command code for a few minutes. Ava understood before he finished. You intend to carry it into the furnace. I intend to place it in the loading chamber and leave before ignition. Your plans continue to depend on impossible timing. That is why I count. He activated the repeater. A pale amber light appeared on its surface. Across the yard, the vapor stopped moving. Then the entire cloud turned toward him. Ethan ran. The old loading track curved between silent crushers and empty or bins. The repeater pulsed against his chest, and the black cloud followed like a tide climbing uphill. Ava reached the control platform and gripped the manual ignition wheel. Loading chamber open, she called through the radio. You have 90 seconds before the storm disables the fuel pumps. Ethan entered the furnace building. Heat rolled from the pilot burners. He placed the repeater on the center rail and backed toward the exit as vapor poured through the loading doors. It swallowed the amber light, folding inward until the whole chamber became dark. Close the doors, Ethan said. Ava turned the wheel. Steel panels began sliding together. Then the mechanism stopped. A warning bell rang once. The west latch has failed, she said. Ethan found the manual release inside the chamber. It sat beyond the safety line, beside the loading rail. I can free it from here. And how much time will you have? He looked at the pressure gauge. Enough. The vapor rose around him, speaking with Daniel's voice, Ava's voice, and hundreds of voices from the archive. Ethan kept walking. He pulled the release lever. The latch dropped into place with a heavy click, and the doors began closing again. But the exit narrowed faster than he could reach it. Ethan, Ava said. Do not come after me, he answered. Silence filled the radio. Then the door stopped 6 inches from closing. Blue fingers appeared in the gap. Ava forced the manual override with both hands, opening a space just wide enough for Ethan to crawl through. You gave me that order once, she said, her voice strained but steady. I did not follow it then either. Ethan reached the platform as the doors sealed. Ava turned the ignition wheel. The furnace roared. White light filled the seams. The black vapor pressed against the inspection glass, then broke into countless points of silver and vanished into the heat. A pressure wave shook the platform. Ethan pulled Ava behind the thermal shield and covered them both with the emergency blanket. For several seconds, the entire building hummed like a struck bell. Then the sound faded. Outside, black particles drifted from the sky, cooling into smooth pieces of glass before touching the ground. Ava looked at Ethan through the dim red light. You warned me not to follow. He drew one careful breath. You finally listened to the important part. Her hand closed around his as the last piece of dark glass landed between them, quiet as snow. 3 weeks later, the colony lights came back one district at a time. White lamps returned to the corridors. Heating units resumed their steady hum. The ore furnace remained silent, its loading chamber sealed behind a new wall of heat-resistant glass. Beyond it, the last fragments of black material lay fused into smooth sheets that reflected the copper sky. Ethan stood outside the medical center wearing a gray thermal coat over his recovery suit. His lungs still tightened in cold air, and his left hand had not stopped trembling completely, but the doctors had finally allowed him to walk without supervision. Ava waited beside the colony memorial. Her cobalt blue skin looked almost silver beneath the morning light. The command implant at the base of her neck was gone, replaced by a narrow medical patch. In her hands, she held the archive unit. The council arrived an hour ago, she said. They want to classify everything. Ethan looked through the memorial glass. Thousands of names moved across its surface in quiet columns. Some belonged to the lost expedition from 11 years earlier. Others came from older records hidden beneath the valley. They always do. They offered me full restoration of rank if I approved the official report. Ethan turned toward her. What does the report say? That an unknown environmental event caused temporary system failure. That the colony was saved by coordinated Aurelian command. Her amber eyes remained steady, but something colder moved behind them. Your name appears once. As technical support. Ethan gave a tired half-smile. That sounds efficient. It is dishonest. The memorial doors opened behind them. Council officers crossed the plaza in formal silver uniforms, followed by cameras and legal clerks. The senior official approached Ava with a prepared statement glowing on a tablet. Commander Mercer, we are ready for your confirmation. Ava took the tablet. For one moment, Ethan saw the old posture return. Shoulders straight, chin lifted, the shape of someone trained never to hesitate while others watched. Then she looked at the memorial wall. Captain Soren Vale's name passed slowly across the glass. Ava deleted the prepared statement. "The human engineer warned me before the incident," she said. Every camera turned toward her. "I ignored him because my instruments reported no threat, and because I believed caution would make me appear weak." The official's expression hardened. Ava continued. "Ethan Cole entered the anomaly after our systems failed. He recovered the missing archive. He guided the evacuation. He designed the containment plan. He also refused to abandon the names of those our government had already chosen to forget." The plaza became still. No applause. No music. Only the faint mechanical click of the memorial changing from one name to the next. Ava inserted the archive unit into the public terminal. The full record opened across every colony screen. Voices became dates. Missing persons became identified citizens. Sealed orders became visible history. The senior official reached for the terminal, but Ava placed one hand over the control. "This record belongs to their families now." Later, after the council transport departed, Ethan and Ava stood alone beside the furnace glass. A young technician approached the safety line, distracted by a handheld scanner. The floor sensor flashed yellow. Ava caught his shoulder before he stepped across. "Stop," she said. He looked at her, startled. "The scanner says the chamber is stable." Ava glanced toward Ethan. "Then ask it why the glass is humming." The technician stepped back. A second later, a thin crack of heat shimmered across the sealed floor. He thanked her and hurried away. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You trusted a shadow." "No," Ava said. "I trusted the person who noticed it." Wind moved through the memorial panels behind them, and the sheets of black glass answered with a low, distant tone. It sounded almost like breathing. Ava placed the burned length of yellow rescue line into Ethan's hand. Neither of them spoke. They did not need to. She had once mistaken caution for fear. Then a human walked into her darkness and taught her the difference.